Hello and welcome. My name is Jason Murray. I'm a Solutions Readiness Engineer at Cisco, and this video is part of a series of videos I'm doing on migrating and upgrading to UC 9.x. In a previous video I covered Communications Manager, and this one's going to cover Unity Connection. So right now let's go ahead and go over a few things of what's going to be covered in this video, and then we'll get right into the upgrade. Alright, so let's talk a little bit about what you're going to be seeing in this video. It looks very similar to the previous video, what we're going to be covering, because basically Communications Manager and Unity Connection are really similar in the way they do upgrades as far as, doing 7.0 all the way up to 8 to version 9. So it's going to be a very similar video. It is going to be a physical to virtual migration, so it's going to be a P2V as well as an upgrade. So we're going to be covering that as well. And like I mentioned in the Communications Manager video, there's many ways of doing migrations and upgrades, and this is just one way of doing it. This way we'll back up everything in the database and push it into the new version. So there's another program with Unity Connection called Cobras, and you can find more about this at this link right here. But Cobras allows you to actually move from any version of Unity or Unity Connection and get to your end result of 9. Now, the little bit big difference between Cobras and like the DIRT or DRS process that we're going to be covering is that it doesn't back up it's not a complete backup of everything in the database. So you can pick what you want to back up and pick what you want to restore. So it's a little bit different in that it's not a full version, everything back it up and full push it out, because you can't really pick and choose what you want to restore in a DRS, but you can with Cobras. So that's one way of doing a backup, and this, like I said, this is not the only way. It is an approved way. We are following the migration guide that you can find right here. This is approved, and there may be some other steps in there depending on what you have and what you're starting with. So I recommend that you take a look at this guide and make sure that you're reading up on it. Make sure there's things that maybe because of the version you're on or software or hardware that you're using, you may need to do an extra step or two. So make sure that you're reading that as well as watching this video. So just like the Communications Manager upgrade, we're also starting at 7.1.5 on our MCS on Unity Connection. So there's not really a matrix like there was with Communications Manager where you kind of look at the version and see where the direct upgrade, pretty much anything from 7.0 up to 8 whatever, can go to version 9. Now if you're getting anything older than that, then you're going to have to do some other things, especially if you're starting at Unity and moving on to Unity Connection, because they're no longer doing Unity anymore. So it's going to be all Unity Connection. So there's different ways of getting from Unity to Unity Connection as well, mainly with using Cobras and stuff like that. So we're starting at 7.1.5 and moving on up to 9.x. So this is what we're going to be covering in this as far as the software goes. So let's go ahead and talk about the hardware now. This is an MCS 7825 i3 server, and it is supported for 9.x. There's a website you can check out here that will list all the servers that will be supported with 9.x, and on that list there's tables, and it'll actually tell you if you need to do anything to the server to make it supportable. So like this particular server here, there's some caveats there. If I had certain situations where I may need to add a couple more gigs of memory, because it only comes with 2 gig, but if I had certain factors, I may need to put a couple more gigs of memory in there to actually allow it to do it if I was running it on there. We're just going to do this a physical to virtual, so we're just moving it up to version 9, and then we're going to virtualize it with DRS and put it in a virtual machine. So we're not really running anything on production and doing anything like that. But if you are curious, check out this website to make sure that your hardware will support version 9, and then from there we'll do the DRS. Alright, so let's talk a little bit about licensing. We did talk about this in Communications Manager, a little bit about it, but it's kind of same thing goes here. You're going to want to make sure that you plan this out, make sure that you're going to get the right licenses that you need once you get to version 9. Apply all your old licenses that you have, because they're not going to be valid once you get to version 9, but get taken care of all that. As far as doing Enterprise License Manager or ELM, we're not going to cover that in these videos. Like I said before, we have plenty of videos out on the channel that you can take a look at that just covers ELM. Same process goes, same way of adding licenses adding products to enterprise license management. So no need to create yet another video about the same thing that's already been covered. So go ahead and check those out if you're curious about enterprise license management. But you definitely, once you get to in the version 9, you got a 60-day limit, so you got 60 days to get your licenses. Hopefully you've taken care of that beforehand and gotten everything ready to go, that you're not going to wait to day 59 and get your licenses in there. But it's something that you need to get taken care of because you do have that 60-day license. But we're not going to show that and how to do those licensing in this video. They're already on the channel, so go ahead and check those out if you're curious about how ELM works and how to do that. Alright, so one last thing before we actually get into the migration is the last bullet here is review all the material. Like I said, I'm posting links in the video itself. There's some in the description as well. Check those out. Make sure you're reading those if this is something that you're going to be doing in the future, because you want to be well aware of everything. I'm probably not going to hit everybody's situation out there with this particular video. There's so many different ways of doing things. This is one way. You're probably going to see pretty much most of the stuff that you're going to see in the video, but it's always good to read up on the documentation just to make sure that everything's going to be covered. So take a look at that, use this video as well as read up on the documentation I'm sharing with you, and then you'll be well prepared for your turn to do a migration. And with that being said, let's go ahead and get into it and get into the migration part of the video. Okay, so I've logged on to the Unity connection server that's on the MCS, and we come up to the administrative page. And as you can see on this page here, we are running 7.1.5 like I mentioned earlier, so we're going to take it from 7.1.5 and upgrade to 9.0. On this system, we do have a few users. As you can see in the user page, there's a few of them here. Not too big of a system, just enough to show you the users do get carried over during the upgrade like they should. So first thing we need to do is go to the OS administration page. We'll hit go, and we're going to pull up and log into here because we do need to install a Cisco option package just like we did in Communications Manager. We've got to get the system prepared to accept the upgrade. So to do that, let's go to the software upgrades menu and click on install upgrade. Now our COP or COP file is out on an FTP server, so we're going to click on remote file system to bring that in, and we'll put the directory of the actual file. It's in our CUCM directory because it is the same COP file that we installed in the Communications Manager. You only need to download one COP file to hit both of them up, so we're going to put the information of our server in there. Change it to FTP. It can be an SFTP server if you have that. Probably more secure, but we're going to go ahead and click Next. Now as this page comes up, you'll see that it actually sees the refresh upgrade. It is a refresh upgrade, and we've talked about a little bit about what refresh upgrade is. It means a little bit more reboots. And that's good, looking good, so we're going to click Next. Alright, so this is going to take just a few minutes while it downloads because it is on an FTP server, so we'll go ahead and pause it and come back in just a second. Alright, so the file has finished downloaded, just validated, so we see that we get a few normal warnings that we normally get when we download these type of files, and you can see what file it is, checksum. So we're going to go ahead Next. And now again, it's going to take a little bit of time to install the actual COP file. It'll do a little bit of install, modify a few files, and then we'll kind of refresh the Tomcat service, and then we'll have to log in. So we're going to pause again and come back and log in after it's installed. Okay, so now we've got a successful install of the COP file, and Tomcat will be restarted. So we're going to hit install another. It's been a little bit since it completed, so it should be ready to go. Brings us back to OS Administrator Login page because it did restart Tomcat. We have to log back in, so we'll go ahead and do that. Alright, so now that we've got that COP file installed and it's ready to go for the actual upgrade of the system to 9.x. So we're going to install and upgrade just like we did with the COP file. This time we're going to use the DV CD-ROM, and since it is that, all we have to do is put a root or a /, which means root, and it finds it. If you get something here, it actually found the DVD, ISO, whatever you're installing. So we're going to hit Next. And now it's going to download. It won't take quite as long since it is local, so it will find it and refresh your page rather quickly. So it's doing that now. And then when it comes back up, we're going to get a bunch of little warnings and things to make sure you do a backup, make sure this integrity, as well as tell you that it is a refresh upgrade. That means there's going to be more reboots because it's going to be doing underlying OS of the Linux operating system and doing reboots and upgrades to that. So it is going to do a reboot. It doesn't give you a chance to switch to the new version like we did in Communications Manager, but just keep in mind you're going to have to do this during some downtime, not during normal business hours, because it will be doing many reboots. So we're going to hit next. It's going to pop up with another warning to actually make sure, hey, it's going to be rebooting on you. So are you sure? Yep, we're going to go ahead and do it. We're going to click OK, and then it's going to go into the install process. So this does take quite a bit of time. Depending on your system, it could take longer than other people. So we're going to go ahead and pause it again, and then once we come back, we'll be ready to start doing our DRS backups. Okay, so the upgrade's finished, and we are now on our MCS at version 9. So you can tell that right here. So we've got a few things more to do. We're going to do a DRS backup, and that way we can take that backup and restore in the virtual machine. So let's go into the DRS system, or the disaster recovery system page. We'll have to log in with our OS administrator user. So go ahead and do that. And then once we get in here, we don't have a backup device yet. So we're going to have to go ahead and create that. So we're going to click on backup device. And then once that comes up, we'll be able to hit add new. And then we'll go through and give it a name of just backup is what we're going to call it. And then we're going to give it the IP address of this FTP server that we have to back up, or SFTP server. And then we'll put in the path name of where we want it to stick it, and then the username and password that has right. So clicking on save, hopefully we get a status message of update successful, which we do. That means it went out and checked to make sure that it was accessible. So everything's good to go there. So let's go ahead and get into the manual backup. So as you saw, manual backup. Let's choose a device, which is backup. We're going to go ahead and back up everything. You could choose a couple different things. We're going to just go back up everything in the cluster. We'll go ahead and click OK on any message that comes up. Go ahead and don't really need ELM because we're using ELM on the Communications Manager. You can have a separate ELM, so we don't really need to back up anything ELM. There's nothing in it. It just now got upgraded. So save us a little time. We're going to go ahead and hit Start Backup. And then we're going to go ahead and just going to give you a little bit of a warning. Say, hey, make sure your security passwords are up to date and you know what they are and everything like that. So this thing's going to kick this off, and it's going to take a little bit of time to back up the devices and the actual users and stuff. It shouldn't take too long, but we're going to go ahead and pause the video and come back after it's complete. Okay, so our backup is completed, and now we're actually going to go into the build of the virtual machine just like we did in the Communications Manager build. You got to get it into a virtual environment. So we've pulled up vSphere, and we're connected into a vCenter. So you may not have a vCenter, you may have it. You may be connecting to the server directly. Either way, the concept is the same. You're going to be doing the same steps. You're going to be deploying an OVF template that you're going to download from Cisco. So depending how you're connecting into it, you may click on the server IP, or you might click on a folder or whatever. But we're going to click on File, Deploy OVF Template. We're going to choose the template we downloaded earlier. This is on our system. You'll have to have it on an accessible drive or something. So pulled it up. Got version 8, which means it's ESXi version 5 compatible. If it was 7, it would be 4, ESXi 4. So we're going to click Next. Gives us a little bit details about it, so we're going to click Next. We can give it a name here. We're going to pick a place where we're going to put it, and click Next on this page. And then we've got an option of choosing how many users we have on the system. 1,000 is fine for what we have, but if you have others, More than that, you can choose that and it would change the settings. Again, we're just going to put it on this particular server here. You may not get this screen if you're connecting to the server directly because you're already on the server. This is because we're in vCenter, but this is the server we want, so we're going to click Next. Then we're going to choose the data store. We've got a couple of them here. We're just going to put it on the larger one. You put it on wherever you want it. And click Next. And then in this next screen, we're going to choose how we're going to build it. Thin provision makes it smaller. It only builds it on demand. You want pretty much thick provision, lazy zeroed in production environments, but we're just going to do thin here. And then we're going to overview. So we're going to click Finish, and it's going to build that virtual machine. It's going to take a few seconds, and then we're going to see it pop up in the list. Just a moment, and we've got completed successfully. Alright, so we're going to close that out. Alright, so we see our VM in the list of VMs. Ignore these other ones. This is part of our labs. We're going to right click on that one and click Edit Settings. Select the DVD drive, and we're going to attach an ISO that's in our data store that we've uploaded earlier. So make sure you upload that at some point, and then we're going to point to it so we can boot off this thing. So we've got it in our CUCM CUC folder. You can create whatever folders you want on the data store. Just make sure it's on the data store. And so select it wherever it's at, and then we're going to click on Connect at Power On. Make sure that is checked or it's not. This isn't going to boot. And then we're going to click OK. And then we're going to go ahead and select, or we're going to power on the VM. And then we're going to come over and click the console button, and now it's going to start booting up, and you're going to see a message come up to check the media and things like that, and you're going to go into the actual install of creating and building your new VM with the same specs of the one you just backed up. So same IP, same security password, same admin password. Just keep everything the same. That way you don't run into any issues. And then once that's completed and installed, then we'll go into the DRS backup. We're not going to go through the settings of everything because it's pretty much like every other UC install, you know, IP address, NTP, all those different things, security password. But when you do build it, like I said, build it with the exact same settings so everything will match. It's got to be the same version of software as well as the same, same IP and same passwords and things. So get that done, get that installed, and then we're going to get, once this is complete, installed, we're going to do our DRS restore. Okay, so we've got our brand new, freshly installed Unity Connection server inside a virtual machine. We have no users on here because it is a blank system, so we're going to take this virtual machine and going to restore our backup from it. So have no settings whatsoever in it, so we've got no port group, no phone system, no ports or anything like that. So freshly installed, don't really have to do anything to it, just making sure that it's the right version from what we backed up. So we're going to go to the disaster recovery system, and we're going to click go because this is what we're going to do our restore from, just like we did the backup. So we're going to log into this system here. And since this is a brand new system, we're going to have to recreate another backup device. Point it to our SFTP server where our backup is located. So we're going to click Add New, and then give it a name. Just make this backup, and then we're going to go through and put the settings of our SFTP server. So path name, whatever it is, wherever you backed it to, put that information in there and click Save. So it's going to go out and check the status, make sure it can connect to it, and we can because it says update successful. You would get an error if not. So we're going to restore by using the restore wizard and use our backup device that we just created. It should find our latest backup, our tar file that it backed up to, and we do. It's right there in the list, so we're going to select that and click Next. And then we're going to check all the boxes we backed up earlier, so everything we need here. Check any boxes or click OK on anything that may have popped up for you. doesn't have ELM because we didn't select that when we did the backup earlier. So select them all, click next. And because we only have a publisher in this cluster, there's really no cluster, just a publisher, we're going to select the publisher servers. Now if we were installing a subscriber, we would check the subscriber name here, but we don't have that. We only have one server in this cluster, so the publisher is what we're going to restore. And that's pretty much all we need to do on this page. So going to go ahead and click restore, and it's going to do the restore. So this, of course, takes a little bit of time to do, not as long as Communications Manager, but it will take some time. So with that said, we're going to pause it, come back after the restore is complete, and then we'll pretty much done. Okay, so we're back, and the restore has completed successfully according to the status. So the next thing you really need to do is restart your servers. If you have a cluster, restart all the systems in the cluster so you can have everything working. But right now we're going to go into the admin page. Going to click go and then check things out for a second just to make sure that there are some users on the system, that the restore did do something. So we're on 9.0 and we're going to click on the users container here and check out. We do have our users, so we didn't have that before, but now after the restore and restart, everything looks like it's good to go. All the configuration should be there. So next thing I want to do is actually install VMware tools. We didn't cover this in the Communications Manager video, but anytime you do UC now, you need to make sure you have those tools installed. It helps with management of the VM. So we're going to right click on this particular VM just to kind of show you where it's at. You're going to click on guest and then click on install upgrade VMware tools. So with the newer versions of UC, all it is an automatic tools upgrade. You select that, click OK, and everything will work and install in the background. You'll have a little status here in a second. We're not going to install it, but right now, we're going to hit cancel and then look in the summary tab, and that's where you can actually tell the VMware tools status right here. So right now it's running, but they're out of date. All we need to do is an install. So once that install will be there, they'll be good to go. It'll be green and it'll say running. So that's all you really need to do with installing your VMware tools. So that's pretty much all I have as far as an upgrade goes. Okay, so that's pretty much it as far as a restore goes into a new virtual machine. So we've upgraded the system on the MCS. We've done a restore backup, and we've created our virtual machines and did a restore into it. So pretty much the same process of Communications Manager as you've seen if you checked out the other video, but that's pretty simple process to do. Only thing that's really left to do is the licensing of the system through ELM, and we're hosting that on our Communications Manager server. But we're not going to cover, adding licenses and stuff in this series, but we have other ones that, it's the exact same process. So check those out if you're curious on how ELM works. We have videos on that as well. But other than that, that's all there is to this video. So I thank you for watching, and thank you for choosing Cisco.